Loud.
Alrighty. Happy afternoon from the United States. We have Rita in Florida, Tammy in Wisconsin, and we want to talk about how to handle, how to stop being, what was it, miserable? How to stop being
Stop your suffering. How to stop your suffering.
And start living to your full potential, because we know that if you're in the state of suffering, you're in the state of a victim mindset of everything bad happens to you, there is no way that you're going to be able to focus on your highest potential. And that's because you have set your brain for a totally different GPS. It's going off over here instead of over here where you want it to go. So we're your brain trainers, Rita and Tammy. Welcome. We hope to give you a lot of value that works for you with your brain and moves you towards your goal.
Yeah, we're here to, maybe inspire you to look at something, look at a perspective, or look at an idea or a belief or a value you've had in the past that you can update and upgrade. And so how to stop your suffering? I heard a long time ago that, and it took me a while for my brain to really wrap around that, where it says pain is inevitable. We're going to have human pains. We're in a physical realm. We're heavy, we can physically feel pain, right? Yes. So pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
That's right. And what does that mean?
The suffering, great question. The suffering happens in our mindset. It happens in our brain. It happens in our thought process. It happens, it even happens because we created, our brain loves patterns. And so that suffering becomes a pattern, that feeling becomes an addiction, that addiction becomes what drives you until it cannot drive you anymore, because your body is flat out, stressed out, anxiety out, all the stresses in the world are created.
Right. And it's interesting that it will work until, that's right, your body at some point starts to break down, because your body can only stay in the state of suffering for so long. It's not capable of withstanding that kind of the kind of stress that goes on internally in your little cells that are supposed to be growing instead of being shut down, instead of being thwarted and closed up. And so it shows up. So suffering is really interesting because there are a lot of good things that people get from it. Have you ever noticed somebody who is suffering and they talk about their misery, and we know it loves company, and they get attention? It feeds them what they're looking for, which is connection, love, time, attention. And so if you found yourself suffering all the time, maybe just take a look at what are the benefits of suffering. And then I love this question because it really opens up your eyes to, would I be willing to give up suffering even if I didn't get attention anymore? Would you be willing to? And you might say yes initially, but then when you really think about it, you wouldn't be able to call up mom, you wouldn't be able to call up your kids, you wouldn't be able to call up your friend and tell them about your suffering. What would you do? Life would be totally different, right? But in order to live to your full potential, I hope you agree that you have to stop suffering. It's inevitable. They can't be synonymous.
Yeah, it's something's, what has to happen? That's another question for you, is what has to happen for you to actually stop that obsessive loop, and you wake up in the morning and you're that same thought, you're that same process, you're that same belief. You go to bed, you're that same thought, your same belief. You go to the family reunion, it's the same conversation 10 years ago, 30 years ago, this happened to me and this did person. And look, I know that it's part of the brain. The brain thinks the more we suffer, the more we can be aware and vigilant, and it won't happen again. But we also know that it creates grooves in your pattern. And if you know anything about law of attraction, it also attracts that, because that is where you're vibing. That is where you are coming from. Right. So writing down your suffering and then what would happen if you did let go of suffering? Oh, you let this other person who hurt you off the hook, right? Like that's another one, right? And so you have this resentment. And what is resentment? Resentment is a pill I take so I can die. It's a pill I take so you can die, right? Because you hurt me, you this, you that. And how can you take control of your life? How can you live your full potential when you're giving your power to an old memory?
Right. You're really living in the past. And, I just didn't understand it until I did. And we hope to just shed a little bit of light on how come this is happening. And it's not your fault and you don't know it. And your brain is working perfectly to keep that pattern going. However, it's not serving you. And so suffering comes from a past experience where you learned it, and then you develop a belief because you lived in that moment over and over in your head. And when you developed that belief, you just focused your brain on that scenario. And now your body believes it's true, and it becomes like part of your DNA. So it's really important to go back to those.
I wanted to say that you were little, something happened. You didn't have the resources that you do as an adult. So the best way for you to cope with that was because look, you wanted control. So you brought it over to you because you couldn't control that person, but you can control this suffering feeling as your coping mechanism for what happened that you did not like, that did not feel good for you, that you were taken advantage of, that someone violated you emotionally, physically, mentally, even financially been violated. So if you are the victim and you're the poor suffering, that's how you coped. So it's time to level up. It's time to think bigger than that. And
that's right.
And we know as brain trainers, you can flip that, you can switch that.
Yes. And it's really cool. I have a client in her 70s, and she had shingles 3 times in the 1990s and still dealing with residual nerve pain from that. And it's so fascinating because you think you can't go back and change that she had shingles, but when she updates the feeling and she knows how to deal emotionally better with things now with the skills that I taught her, when she goes back to that memory and she can let the injured, the ill person know, you don't have to choose this anymore. She literally can update it and set herself free from that painful experience. And it's just so fascinating that all she has to do is go back and look at that memory and speak to that younger version, speak to the ill person and say, you don't need to do this anymore. You know how to deal with your parents being ill or sick. You know how to deal with it much better now. And then all of a sudden it becomes light and easy to look at, instead of being like, I don't even want to go back and look at it. And so the memory is holding way more power than you can even imagine. And it might not even seem like it's a memory that's, very important, but man, those memories just lock you into a pattern. So if you're feeling stuck and you're feeling like you're suffering all the time, and you're not, right? You have a home, you have food, you have family, you're really not literally being tormented and suffering, then let's just go update those memories and give yourself a whole new power for living to your potential.
Yeah. Because what happens is when you let go of the suffering feeling, you let go of the suffering stories, that narrative that everyone does everything so you can suffer. The disappointment, that's also a memory, being hurt, other people being mean. Those are memories of something that happened in the past that is no longer happening, but you are creating it. So I just had a session the other day. I'm a mentor assessor, and we have we have mentees that come in and I assess and they do a session on me. And I had this feeling of meanness. You know, this person was mean. I was being mean to this person. And you know, you find out from the past that I had a story that my mom was mean. Right. And so we were able to rewrite that. We were able to flip it. And I sort of, my shoulders felt more relaxed. I felt like more generous. But I noticed that this mean story, I was creating it in my relationships, letting people, quote unquote, be mean to me by what they did and what they said or what they didn't do and what they didn't say, which really was how I kept creating it. And sometimes you have that pattern with that one person that always shows up. Yes. And so here you are, rewritten, released, and now I'm able to consciously and competently, unconsciously be able to have choice in my life. I was creating my own suffering of this pain. And now I can live to my true potential, which is I want to be loved. I want to be a value to people out there, to teach them how to stop their suffering, give them the tools and the skills that they need to acquire so they can take over, control, and start controlling your own life instead of letting other people and circumstances dictate. So super excited.
Yeah, it's incredible and exciting when we see that all we have to do is change the way we saw somebody in our past. And this morning I was talking to my husband, and he did a little mini session on me. And at the end, you know, the thought is, treat others the way you want to be treated. What about if you even make it deeper? Treat others inside of yourself the way you want to be treated. Okay. So if I'm seeing my parents as not good enough, like they shouldn't have yelled at me and they should have given me more and they should have, you know, they should have known that I was sensitive child. They should have, okay. So they're not good enough. Well, what am I going to feel? And what am I going to keep producing? Even though I'm seeing it as them not good enough. So inside of me, if I make them good enough, then my suffering stops and I can feel good enough. And then I move into the potential of being good enough and believing it from a level of self-image and all the way back to my childhood.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And how you can do that is because your brain, your unconscious part of you has resources, right? Yeah. And these resources is what they use, what it uses to give you what it thinks you want.
That's right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's right. So, you know, we had an anger management class, and it's fascinating because, you know, you can talk to somebody that, you know, they're like, I was angry today, and you ask them how long? Well, 10 minutes, and it wrecked my whole day. And well, okay, it was 10 minutes out of 24 hours for that whole day. But if you focus on that 10 minutes, you're going to be, you know, feeling like you're an angry person. It's going to make you miserable. And even if it was just a minute, if you made that what your whole day is about, that's what it's going to be about. And if you forgot that, oh, you were loving and you were generous and you were kind and you were thoughtful, but all that mattered is you were angry, then that's all you're going to remember. And it's going to create that pattern that Rita was talking about. And so, you know, we are a lot of things at many times, and switching a few things can really help refocus and give you the proofs and the resources that you really are capable of living your potential. And you have done it many, many times. And now we just need to tweak what you're focusing on based on your experiences, update your self-image, and you can really, really improve your lifestyle, improve your potential.
You're taking control over those reins, you know, you're taking control over the driver's seat, and you're getting yourself back, yourself back on the horse again. And this is you taking complete ownership for who you are and what you do and how you act, how you behave. This is you being in control of your life and not letting other people and circumstances control
That's
your
right.
emotions, what you want, what you don't want. Yeah, it's time to update. It's time to upgrade. It's time to grow up. And we would
That's right.
love to support you in that journey.
Exactly. You know, when you let go of the stories, the images, the sounds, the feelings of suffering, then your body will automatically update and you'll be living a life that you only dream of. So we do want to support you in that. We've got the stop stress technique below. And what that will do is put you on our mailing list for all of the other things we have coming up. So pass this on to a friend, share it with them, get excited about your potential and how easy it is. All you need to focus on is those memories that are driving you to suffering. And when we can update them, it's amazing the things that can change. Your brain will do it for you because you're working with it. So like, share, subscribe, and make sure to click the notifications. That way you know when we're going live next time.